Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users. I think we got a hacker.
Shall we play a game?
It is June the 3rd. It is 08:27, and this is your morning brief. There wasn't a brief last week. I wasn't very well at all. I started exercising like I was 19, and it absolutely wiped me out. And so my neck was sort of at a crooked angle, so there was no brief. That's why. But we're back. We're back, and hopefully by popular demand, hopefully by unpopular demand. What's been going on? Well, Bluekeep. Bluekeep is still out there. You know, we've seen this RDP exploit. We've talked about it. I know there's an exploit out there right now. I know of one. The news is kind of a bit iffy. Is it being used in the public domain? But it seems like security researchers are kind of really reluctant to push the boat out on this one, partly because I guess they don't want to be the first person responsible for a worldwide worm that could potentially have massive impact. I think the last one I looked at it said that there was 1 million systems out there still vulnerable to this. So that's a bit of a problem if someone was to exercise, a wormable attack. I mean, you can imagine that, 1 million systems and how those systems are linked to systems and then linked to systems. This is how kind of like, obviously pandemics break out, but, hey, look, it's just a bit of a problem. It is interesting to say the least. There's a new variant of some malware out there. We're talking about there was a pharmaceutical testing company got hacked. They were talking about, where was it? They were talking about it's a new variant of something, but again, no one actually said what it was, which was a bit weird. They said 45,000 staff. I mean, that's a big company. They're talking about adding in additional protections. What additional protections there are. I mean, if your application whitelist and only allow things to run that should be running, then a lot of times, that should be protected. But it was definitely a new variant of ransomware. So again, imagine Eternal Blue or the Bluekeep stuff. Sorry, I was reading something the week. It was talking about Eternal Blue still being used, so that's why Eternal Blue's on the brain. But Bluekeep, with some new sort of ransomware and some local exploit privileges a couple of weeks ago, then you got a bit of a problem. So we did see a number of breaches last week. I think there was the bigger one. We saw even Leicester City Football Club get breached. But again, these breaches are sort of come in steady drips. But if we saw that Bluekeep hit, then we could expect a full-on flood. Like I said, I just think people are a bit reluctant to release it because they don't want to be the first person that is found out, hey, look, you were the guy responsible for all this. And it's like, no, it's been out there. It's just lots. I know Nginx has got a new vulnerability into it, so if you've got Nginx, make sure you're updated. Also, I read these ones. It talks about hackers infect 50,000 MS SQL, PHP, MyAdmin servers with rootkit malware. And again, it's like default credential type stuff, brute forcing. I mean, you got to do account lockouts. You got to be able to not just lock an account out, blacklist that particular IP address. I know they're going to come from other IP addresses, but you got to be able to do some of the basic stuff to protect yourself against brute force. Again, threat surface reduction would have helped. Why is those kind of admin pages available to the big wide world? Why is it not restricted? But again, we've seen it time and time again, not doing due diligence, basic stuff. So always keep strong, complex passwords for their accounts. That's kind of standard. But again, you can go beyond that. Login restrictions via GeoIP. I know it's just another hurdle for someone to jump over, but it's another hurdle. I mean, at the end of the day, the more hurdles you put in, the more complex you make it. I'm just going to move on to another system and you're going to be bypassed. Now, a lot of this is all done automatically. So, if you can sort of stop certain things automatically, you can move on and block other things. So we've seen a couple of compromises, new variants of ransomware. We've seen, attacks using skimmers again, back to the physical type attacks. And we've seen this blue cape. Everybody's just waiting for it. Nearly 1 million computers still vulnerable. I know the guy that wrote MassScan put out RDP scan. We added it to our systems. But obviously, we get picked up on that on different signatures from, like Nessus and places like that. But bearing in mind that these, you're seeing a lot of potential. You got to think of who is the guys that have access to your system, and are they good as well? That supply chain stuff. Because I guarantee, and even then, if you're reliant on a single component from someone, how good is that company's security? It's time to start thinking about not just your own security, but have a look at the supply chain. What things are critical in your supply chain? How are those companies? Sometimes it's services that are critical in that supply chain. Maybe a third-party application. How good are they? How's their security looking? We're all interlinked these days. So, one person catches something, we're all going to start going down with it eventually. But again, let's hope it's a nice quiet week. It is 08:33, and that was your morning brief.
Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users.